The South China Sea, a silent cauldron of ambition and fear. For years, its calm waters have hidden the slow, relentless buildup of two superpowers preparing for the unthinkable. Beneath the turquoise waves lies not only ancient coral but the flashpoint of a modern global struggle. The world's eyes had grown used to the posturing, the drills, the warnings, the so-called freedom of navigation operations. But that morning, everything changed. It began just before dawn. A wall of humid air hung over the Spratly Islands as the first light crept across the horizon. On board the USS Gerald R. Ford, the crew moved with quiet precision. No shouts, no panic, just a practiced rhythm born of endless drills. The smell of jet fuel, metal, and ocean salt mingled as F/A-18 Super Hornets were armed and rolled toward the deck elevators. In the Combat Information Center, screens flickered to life. One by one, radar signatures appeared, red dots, then clusters, then a swarm. The Chinese fleet, moving fast, moving in formation, and in that instant, the unspoken became undeniable. This was not another standoff. It was a challenge. The comms channel crackled to life. Eagle Command, this is Trident. Confirm hostile movement. Request engagement protocol. A pause, then a cold reply. Trident, engage. Maintain containment parameters. Execute Freedom Shield. Outside, the sea began to roar under the carrier's engines. Jets armed, destroyers aligned, and deep below the waves, submarines shifted into attack formation. The United States Navy, the world's most formidable fleet, was about to enter a battle no one had officially declared. It started with silence, and then, sudden defiance. Satellite feeds confirmed it first. 6 Chinese Type 055 destroyers, flanked by missile frigates and electronic warfare vessels, cutting through the contested zone under the guise of routine patrol. But analysts in Washington saw the truth. Their course, their formation, it was tactical, deliberate, and dangerously close. Aboard the USS John Finn, Commander Harris leaned over the plotting table, eyes fixed on the expanding wave of red contacts. His voice was calm but unyielding. No one crosses grid Echo 6. We hold the line here, no exceptions. The air on deck was thick with tension. Sailors moved faster now, hands trembling slightly as they loaded missiles, locked radar systems, and braced for what they all feared was coming. The Ford-class carrier group had weathered close calls before, but this time the sea felt wrong. Heavy, waiting. At 4:31 hours, sonar operators caught the first echo, a low, metallic pulse beneath the surface. Chinese submarines. 3 of them. Their signatures matched the deadly Type 093 attack class. The U.S. fleet was being shadowed. Then it happened. Multiple inbound. Bearing 085, speed Mach 2. Missile alarms screamed. CIC lights flickered red. Harris slammed a hand on the console. All ships. Deploy countermeasures. Intercept on my mark. Within seconds, the destroyers fired SM-6 interceptors, brilliant streaks of white slicing across the gray morning sky. The first salvo met the incoming missiles mid-air in a blinding explosion. Shockwaves rippled across the sea. The bridge shook violently. And yet, more blips appeared. Dozens. The sky became chaos. Tracer fire, contrails, and burning debris raining down like molten hail. Sea Viper 1, Fox 3. Target locked. Incoming portside. Brace for impact. For 8 minutes, the South China Sea burned. Fireballs bloomed on the horizon, the air filled with thunder and metal. And amidst the storm, one truth emerged. Deterrence was dead. Smoke rolled across the sea like a living thing, black and heavy, swallowing the morning light. The U.S. carrier group had survived the first strike, but the message was clear. China had fired the opening salvo. The ocean was now a battlefield. Commander Harris' voice cut through the static. We've taken damage, but we're still in the fight. Trident Group, return fire. Priority target, hostile destroyers. Aboard the USS Ford, the flight deck was alive with motion, deck crews waving glowing wands, mechanics shouting over jet engines. The air roared as the first wave of F/A-18 Super Hornets thundered off the catapults, afterburners tearing streaks of fire into the dawn. Falcon 1 airborne. Target locked. Requesting strike package authorization. Copy. Falcon. Strike authorized. Neutralize and disengage. As the fighters screamed toward the horizon, Their pilots could already see the silhouettes of Chinese destroyers through the haze, massive shapes cutting through rolling waves, anti-air guns swiveling skyward. The next moments unfolded in chaos and precision. High above, a USE-2D Hawkeye provided real-time targeting. Below, Tomahawk missiles erupted from American destroyers, their white trails snaking low over the water before vanishing into the haze. Seconds later, the horizon exploded, massive geysers of fire and steel. Impact confirmed. Target Alpha destroyed. Negative on Bravo, she's still firing. The Chinese fleet retaliated, launching counter barrages that lit the sky in red arcs. Missiles screamed over the waves, some missing by meters, others detonating close enough to rattle hulls. Inside the combat information centers, sailors gripped consoles as alarms wailed. We've got splashes on multiple vectors. Stay with your wingmen, watch the deck angles. In the chaos, one U.S. jet took a direct hit, a blinding flash, a trail of black smoke plunging into the sea. For a brief moment, the entire carrier group went silent, the only sound the crackle of radio static. Then came the voice, Falcon 2 down. Repeat, Falcon 2 down. Rescue team deploying. But there was no time to mourn. The fleet's survival depended on dominance, immediate, overwhelming dominance. A new order came across encrypted channels from Command Pacific. Initiate Operation Phoenix Tide. Suppress enemy strike capacity. Total containment authorized. With those words, the U.S. Navy unleashed its full fury. The battle raged above the waves, but deep beneath the surface, an invisible war was already unfolding. One far deadlier, and far quieter. At a depth of 300 feet, the water was pitch black, the sound of the upper battle muffled into distant rumbles. The sonar operators aboard the USS Connecticut, one of America's most advanced Seawolf-class submarines, listened intently as the hydrophones crackled with low, rhythmic pulses. Sonar, new contact, bearing 090, range decreasing fast, classification, likely hostile, type 093 Shang class. They're hunting us, sir. The order came swiftly. Rig for silent running. Maintain depth. Ready tubes 1 through 4. The crew moved like ghosts through the narrow corridors, every step measured, every breath controlled. Inside the control room, the tension was thick enough to feel in the air. Outside, torpedoes sliced silently through the cold water, each one a steel predator seeking its mark. At 9:47, the first ping came, sharp, metallic, unmistakable. A Chinese submarine had gone active, sweeping the dark in search of the Americans. Seconds later, another ping answered, from the Connecticut. It was a message. We see you too. Suddenly, the ocean erupted in chaos. 2 Chinese torpedoes streaked through the deep, their trails glowing faintly in the murk. Countermeasures deployed instantly. Clouds of decoys, bursts of bubbles, chaff-breaking sonar locks. The Connecticut dove sharply, bulkheads creaking, crew gripping railings as gravity shifted. Passing 500 feet, hold steady, deploy countershot. A Mark 48 torpedo fired. Silent at first, then accelerating to near 55 knots, it chased the Chinese sub through the abyss. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, impact. A low, bone-shaking thud reverberated through the deep, followed by a violent shockwave. Target neutralized. 1 hostile down. But victory was short-lived. A second contact appeared, closer, faster, angling for the carrier above. The submarine's commander made the call. We're surfacing. They're going after the fleet. Bring us up, now. The Connecticut ascended fast, breaking the surface as geysers of foam erupted around it. Crew members rushed topside, scanning the horizon as distant explosions flared. Above them, the sea was burning, ships aflame, aircraft circling, missiles streaking overhead. The war below had saved the fleet, for now. The battle had reached a fever pitch. Smoke columns stretched for miles, the sea burned with oil-slick fires, and the air thundered with the roar of afterburners. But for the U.S. Navy, chaos was not defeat, it was opportunity. Amid the confusion, Admiral Lawson aboard the USS Ford saw what no one else could. A weakness in the enemy's rhythm. They're overextended, their left flank is blind to radar coverage. If we strike now, we turn this entire battle. Electronic warfare teams went to work instantly. The carrier's growlers, EA-18G jets designed to disrupt enemy radar, screamed off the deck, jamming frequencies, frying communications, and turning the Chinese fleet's precision into noise. Falcon Group, you are green for suppression. Repeat, you are weapons free. At 1346, the sky came alive. A-18 Super Hornets and F-35C Lightning IIs swarmed into formation, guided by a WACS high above the clouds. Below, the Arleigh Burke-class destroyers fired another volley of Tomahawk missiles, each one locked onto radar reflections distorted by American decoys. The result was devastating. Explosions rolled across the Chinese formation, destroyers rocked by direct hits, communication ships engulfed in flame. The enemy's coordination crumbled. Splash 3 confirmed. Bravo Squadron, push through. Finish them off. For the first time since dawn, the U.S. fleet had control of the battlefield. The sea shimmered with the reflection of fire and tracer light, the horizon a canvas of orange and smoke. Inside the carrier's CIC, the room pulsed with determination. Maintain momentum. All strike groups advance. Target remaining anti-ship batteries. Then came the call that would shift history. A Chinese missile cruiser, Haiyang Shan, had broken formation, turning directly toward the U.S. carrier. It was a desperate gambit, a last push to take down the American flagship. All stations, this is Ford Command. Prioritize Haiyang Shan. Full saturation strike. Moments later, the horizon lit up. Hornets and F-35s dove in low, their missiles carving luminous arcs through the smoke-filled sky. The cruiser erupted in a chain of explosions so violent the shockwave rippled for miles. Silence followed. The roar faded into the low hiss of burning fuel and the rhythmic hum of engines. The U.S. Navy had turned the tide, but everyone knew, the fight wasn't over. Somewhere out there, unseen, the final counter awaited. By 1700 hours, the South China Sea had grown eerily quiet. The crack of missiles and roar of engines faded into the low hum of machinery and the soft, rhythmic lap of waves against steel hulls. The battle was over, at least, that's what everyone thought. Smoke rose like torn banners into a bruised sky, and oil fires still burned across the horizon. Rescue teams worked tirelessly, pulling survivors from the wreckage, scanning the waters for life rafts amid debris and drifting metal. The USS Ford's decks were littered with the scars of combat, melted steel, scorch marks, and exhausted crewmen slumped against bulkheads. Damage control teams, status update. Fire suppression holding on deck 3, sir. No further casualties reported. The admiral stood silently at the command rail, watching the ocean, not in triumph, but in anticipation. Years of experience told him battles seldom ended when the last missile fell. Somewhere, beneath that dark and restless sea, something was stirring. At 1736, the first anomaly appeared. Sonar operators aboard the USS Zumwalt detected low-frequency pings, faint, rhythmic, deliberate. Not random, not mechanical failure, a pattern. Sir, we're picking up subsurface movement. Depth 200 meters. Bearing 042. Confirm that. Could it be one of ours? Negative, sir. Signature doesn't match US or Allied fleets. The Admiral's expression hardened. All ships, condition yellow. Launch P-8 Poseidon for recon. Let's find out who's still out there. Within minutes, the aircraft was airborne, cutting across the sky, radar sweeping wide arcs over the still smoking waters. Below, sonar buoys splashed into the sea, sending pulses into the deep. For a moment, silence, then a return ping so sharp and close it made the audiotech flinch. Contact confirmed. Large displacement vessel, possible nuclear submarine. The room fell silent. The Haiyang Shan's destruction had not been the end, it had been a signal. Something far larger was moving beneath the surface, silent and calculating. The Admiral turned to his XO. Get me a direct line to Pacific Command. Tell them we may not be alone down here. Far below, the dark water stirred again. A faint silhouette drifted through the murk, long, sleek, and impossibly quiet. The U.S. Navy had won the surface battle, but the war beneath the waves was just beginning. The ocean was quiet again. What began as a fiery clash had dissolved into silence, the kind of silence that hides wreckage beneath calm waves. The South China Sea, for all its beauty, had once more become a graveyard of ambitions. Dawn crept over the horizon, painting the sky in muted orange hues. The surviving U.S. fleet regrouped, damaged, exhausted, but unbroken. Smoke curled upward from the USS Missouri's hull as helicopters hovered, airlifting wounded sailors to waiting carriers. The admiral stood on the deck of the Zumwalt, eyes fixed on the endless blue where the Shadow Dragon had vanished. "No one wins in silence," he muttered. "Only the sea does." Washington's satellite imagery soon confirmed it: scattered debris, heat signatures fading fast. Whether the Chinese submarine had been destroyed or had simply retreated into the depths remained uncertain. The Pentagon's official statement labeled the encounter as an unprovoked hostile incident, neutralized under defensive engagement protocol. But behind closed doors, the questions burned. How did an experimental vessel like the Shadow Dragon come so close to American strike groups undetected? What new warfare awaited beneath the waves? Across the world, intelligence channels buzzed. Naval engineers dissected acoustic data, strategists rewrote ocean warfare doctrines, and allies demanded answers. The U.S. Navy began new exercises in the region, not just to project strength, but to prepare for an enemy they could neither see nor predict. Beneath those same waters, sonar buoys pinged softly, listening for movement. Some officers swore they still heard faint echoes, rhythmic, calculated, as if something down there was listening back. The ocean forgets nothing. It keeps its secrets well. And in that silence, a new era of naval warfare was already beginning, one defined not by who fires first, but by who disappears last. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Navy's silent world, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more untold stories from the depths.